Woo! Strick City, all over the world.
Strick City, man, we live. Yo, Strick City on the ride. Yo, look like surprise. Yo, taking your city like we live. Yo, man, we live. Yo, taking your city like surprise. Yo, on the ride. Yo, Strick City coming live. Yo.
So I want to be honest with you. I really like having my own show, because when I'm supposed to come on at 8 o'clock and I come on at 8:20, guess what? I don't care. I can just do it, man. It's my show. Hey, you are on Strick City Live with your boy DJ Strick, and man, I have a show for you today. But of course, you know I have to give you the rules, and in order for me to give you the rules, I want to be straight up with you. I need everybody that you and your friends know. Like, I need them to come on today to watch this show. It's going to be so informative. You're going to learn something, I guarantee you did not know before. I have some guests that I met probably about 8 months ago, and man, meeting them just completely knocked my socks off. I didn't know that these people existed in the city of Birmingham. There's some people here that are doing some major league work, and I have them on the show tonight. So to help me through all of this, I have one of my great friends. He actually did the introductions to this whole thing, and he could run 4 or 5 shows on his own right here with Strick City. I love him to death. We could talk all day together, but he's too busy for that. So I got him on this show to help me run through it, and it's none other than dr.tal Prince. Dr.tal Prince, how are you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be with you. And this is when I can talk, is when I'm not working.
When you're not working?
Yeah, when I'm not. This is fun right here. This is not work. So I'm having a good time. And anytime with Steven Strickland is good time. Now, I'm not going to let everybody know, what I know. But I'm just going to say this. Like, if you've not heard the man sing, I'm telling you.
Tal, my audience knows how great of a singer that I am. But what I try to do for them is, because there's always a reaction, and sometimes the action to people is very violent, a violent reaction. I try to curve when I do it.
I appreciate that, man. I just didn't know if everybody had heard it. I know they knew you say it. I didn't know if they'd actually heard it. But the phrase "angels cry" is not untrue.
Well, there you go. There you go. So what happens with it is I try my best to keep my gift, that particular gift, in a certain place, again, because people just respond so oddly to it.
Well, yeah, exactly right. Oddly is probably the right word. But I would say oddly as in the way they reacted to the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, fervor, right? A fervor.
Right. So you ever seen like Michael Jackson when he did his tour, and people will be in the stands and be falling all out in the stands?
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm talking about.
That kind of thing happens when I sing, Tal.
I know, man. I absolutely am aware, and I'm grateful for you exercising responsibility with the gift, man.
Why
I'm grateful.
Not? Somebody has to be responsible, right?
I'm telling you, a lot of people out there trying to bring a lot of attention to themselves, and you are not that man. I love that about you.
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I would really rather somebody else sing, because if I did, and we were in the same room singing, Tal, I mean, of course, they'd be like, well, I like this guy better. And who wants the other person to be jealous?
Exactly right, man. You are not causing your brothers and sisters to stumble.
Not
You're
at
a
all.
biblical man.
Not at all. See, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Tal.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
I'm glad we're here together on that. I'm glad we're here together on that. That means a lot to me. Tal, let me ask you this question. He was just coming to visit, and you said, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. And you actually made the introduction between Pastor Strick and Urban Avenues. What made you say, hey, you guys need to know each other?
Look, I've known John for a very long time, and that is a great joy in my life. And I know his heart, and I know kind of a lot of the things he's trying to get accomplished. And this was also at a time, and this was before things absolutely blew up in our country with the latest round of racial tension and issues. But I know his heart, man, and I know what they're trying to do. And I just thought his gifts meeting your gifts would be a great thing for the kingdom and the city. And so I just needed to make that happen. And so that's what led me to do it, man. He was out there and I said, hey, Strick, come here. I need you to meet this guy.
So your thoughts of bringing us together actually formulated into a meeting between me and Urban Avenues. And I had a chance to sit down with the founder and the operations director, and we're going to get a chance to talk to them today on Strick City Live. Tal's going to be here to help the conversation. We're going to move this thing right along because I'm so excited to introduce these two people. So I have none other than John Lankford and Madison. Madison, I want to be sure I get it right. I'm going to try my hardest to say Kerns. Is that right?
That is it.
I got it. I got it. So thank you guys very much for coming on to the show today. Urban Avenues. I mean, Jenna, I guess I'll start with you. Is this your brainchild to reach people?
Yeah, Strick, it was me, and it was a lot of friends. But this thing stirred in my heart a long time ago, and it was something that once it started moving, then it was the kind of thing that it was a book that I started reading more than having to write. So to call me founder, I don't know. It was just something that was an idea and a heart for me, and I'm really grateful for all the friends that jumped into the middle of it with me. And it's all about Birmingham, but it's all about some things all across our country. And so I had friends from San Francisco. I had friends from Washington, D.C. I had friends from Colorado that jumped into the thick of it with me. And I'm grateful.
So how did Madison get involved with all of this?
Yeah, Madison was a bright light that I met when we first started. One part of Urban Avenues was we said, we want to go out and be able to create places for students to connect with larger stories that they can tell, and not just students from one particular area of the city, but students from all areas of the city. We wanted to figure out a way to create connecting points that they were actually building something and they were making something happen, whether they were coming out of Fairfield or Woodlawn or coming out of North Birmingham or coming out of Homewood or Oak Mountain. And in the process, the first venture we came up with led to another. And when I went to build the second venture, it was something that was in my mind as some kind of a film school that we could help students think about how does their story become a big story, and why does that connect to the entire city, and how can that be important for the state and for the region and for the country? And so I went to Stanford University, who had said, hey, can we play a part, and can we be a part of making this happen? And they said, we've got some students that are juniors and seniors that want to work on social entrepreneurship projects, and they said, we've got a team that we really want you to meet. So myself and a couple of filmmakers came and sat with this group of seniors from Stanford, and a woman named Madison Kerns was the senior leader of this group. And so sure enough, Madison Kerns helped develop what became Fish Camp Films, which was a film school that we've been running ever since. And I think from probably the first time I ever met her, I said, this one's a bright one. And immediately was smart enough. I'm not smart about a lot of things, but I was smart enough to figure out I got to go get this one before she gets out into the big world.
Wow.
And so Madison started working with me originally as a part of my healthcare company, and then jumping in to help lead Urban Avenues. And so she's now our face and voice of Urban Avenues.
So, of course, I have learned to reach out to Madison. Madison and I have been talking at least to schedule this meeting. But Madison, how does it feel coming out a year and being into a company like this? Like you were a senior last year, and now you're working with them.
Yeah, so when I graduated, I graduated in 2015.
Now, of
and
course, I was saying it was a year. I was
Yeah.
just giving you some time there, Madison.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank
Yeah,
you.
man.
But no,
Making you younger.
I had to work for it a little while longer. No, but the fact that in college that he let us work on Fish Camp films was generous, to say the least, I feel like. But no, it's great. And whenever I had met John and was becoming part of Urban Avenues and falling in love with what the organization was doing, I am originally from Tennessee. And so I came down to Birmingham pretty much fresh and new to the history and the lifestyle and how the city is even laid out. And so I just was really excited about the idea of getting to be a part of it. And I loved how Birmingham has just the desire to make it better. And that was one of the things I saw a lot, that it wasn't trying to put a blind eye to problems, that it was really trying to make some solutions. And so I just admired that, and I wanted to stay a part of it. And then the ways that Urban Avenues was facing it with creativity and art and just bringing people together to have conversations, that was something that I felt really played into a lot of what I was really passionate about. I mean, even, we haven't mentioned it yet, but one of our ventures is all about food, and my family's got like a Southern catfish restaurant back home. So like food, I was in it from the beginning.
Okay.
So with all of that, it just felt like a really natural spot for me to be able to step in and play into what I was really hoping to be able to do in the city, and in the city that I'd fallen in love with, and then with a lot of things that I was just personally passionate about too.
Gotcha. Now, Tal, I want to ask you a question, Tal. Now, you have your own company, of course. You're doing insight counseling, and you are also friends with John. How do you get an opportunity to, with your schedule, to play a part of Urban Avenues?
Well, again, what happens is every once in a while, John calls me. And so here's what happened. Like, I remember I was at my sister's house in Atlanta. When I got a phone call from John Lankford. This is probably 8 years ago.
Okay.
And he's birthing the idea. If you've yet to see John Lankford pregnant with an idea, it's a fantastic sight. It really is. And if you like ideas, and I do. So we had a long talk on the phone that night. And so I think all along I've just been this kind of peripheral conversational partner. Every once in a while I'll like smoke up some ribs and I'll go over to the palatial office complex that is Stonehenge. And we'll sit on the porch and have ribs, and he'll throw an idea out. And then again, I'll make it like 300 times larger. That's like not even possible or attainable. And then John remembers why he doesn't talk to me very much about it. And that's kind of how it goes, but then he'll every once in a while be like, but the energy of it's kind of fun. And then he'll call me, and then we'll go have lunch somewhere. And that's what happens. I'll just look, if John needs to talk, he's one of these guys to me. And so are you, Strick. Like, if you need to talk to me, like I'll clear out some clients and I'll come sit down. I mean, there are people in that realm for me. I'll be like, hey, you know what? I got to go do this. And so I'm always happy to be in a conversation with John. And then I met Madison at one of those lunches earlier this year, and we sat down, and it's some barbecue restaurant in Cahaba Heights. We sat over there, and we chatted, and I told him, y'all have to do a podcast. And I kind of know a guy who knows what he's doing in that realm. And of course that was you. So the day I met Madison, I was talking to them about you. So to put this all together tonight for me, that's a win. I'm good.
Well, you definitely have put it all together.
I'm hearing all good ideas start over barbecue.
I know it, right?
That's right. Or catfish.
So And you guys may have the formula for it because you have conversations, and then you do have a part of your, I guess, your company that deals with food. But I want to talk about one piece that I'm very intrigued with, which is the porch sitting. I want to talk about that, and I know we're in the quarantine part of the pandemic, and people are not able to kind of sit around and talk like they used to. But I want to go about how the idea started. Like how it started, you said, hey, how can we get people together to just talk? Madison, John, you guys want to take the idea of how you started the porch sitting idea?
Yeah, I'll be happy, Madison, if you want to talk about how we started it, and then Madison can tell you kind of where we're going with it. So everything we've done in Urban Avenues, we try to do in a way that we take the idea of beauty, the idea of listening, and the idea of being curious, and work together to create something that didn't exist before. And that seems to be something that is a God-birth thing, because that's how God created things. And so we think if we can be inviting and we can keep sort of a low center of gravity about how easy it is for us to invite people into a situation where trust can develop and real good conversation can develop, then that's where so much happens in society. And that's also what happens in family and happens in life. That's the good stuff of life. So we thought about, what do we do if we know we've got this group of students that, man, they love food and they love taking the stories of how they created and invented different dishes and carrying it around the city and interviewing sort of why it's their story. Mm-hmm. And how do we connect that with really good conversations? And we started thinking about, how did the best conversations really ever start? And what was the way it was kind of naturally happening before a lot of the things that play out in social media or just in the busyness of now? And we said, people sat on their porches. Right. You talk to your parents, you talk to your grandparents, and they can tell you about everybody in their neighborhood. And you're like, how did you have all this time? And how did you know all these people? And you realize that, man, it was just neighborhood stuff. And so we thought, what if we could create something that builds those opportunities again and gives people that space and that time? And maybe we set the table a little bit with some ideas of conversations, and pick things, too, that are really meaningful. Pick things that might be edgy and might be difficult at first. Think about how you're going to walk through this conversation and not hit some tension. And we said, you know what? The things that are probably most important for us all to be talking about are things that we're going to have to move through that. And so we began, our first porch sitting was a blast, man. I'll tell you, Strick, it was, I was on fire after that. So were our kids. And it was a combination of about 14 people. We had one of the people that leads the sculpture department at Alabama School of Fine Arts and his wife, who's a crazy good artist. We had a stand-up comedian. We had a florist. We had somebody that leads the gym. We had a surgeon from UAB. We had 2 or 3 other folks that are just kind of normal walk of life. And then we had 6 of our 5 Love students. Now to set the stage, these are kids that are usually somewhere between 15 and 19. And I remember the way we set this up is somebody will kind of lead the conversation, and it'll be an issue. Like I can remember that very first one. The topic was, how do you think and talk about love and dignity in the context of a city that doesn't know each other? So we were talking about a lot of the different communities around, and watching people talk about that, and watching how the conversation naturally started gravitating to, some real issues that we've got in our city about misunderstanding and prejudice and a lot of things. And watching these kids that were young adults actually get the comfort of saying, you know what, I can enter this conversation with people that are 20, 30 years older than me, and I got a spot. And also that their courage really continued to develop through that. So watching that happen tonight, Strick, from then on, I was like, yeah, okay, we need to be doing more of these.
And that's when I first told him, this needs to be a podcast, you clown. Like, this is great. Like, who doesn't want to listen to that? Like, not all of us could be there because not all of us got the invite. But if everybody could listen to that type of a conversation, that's eternally fascinating. Especially in this city, where we have a responsibility for the stewardship of our geography. I was like, that is a huge thing. And so it was years ago that we first talked about the podcast.
So John, I would agree. I wouldn't say it the way he said it, but I would agree that had to be what we call great content.
Yeah.
And to be able to share that content, I mean, with a little producing, of course, putting everything in the right place and editing out some of the things, that noises that maybe you don't want in it. But it's important right now for people to be able to be in rooms. So if you can take 14 people that can give you great content that's meaningful and share it with the world, yeah, you will have a great podcast.
Especially if you mix that with great production talent. I don't know if any of you guys know of anyone, but
yeah, we have to find somebody with great production talent, especially after you watch the replay of this. I'm trying my best to produce, but I'm fighting with my computer right now as we speak. But hey, and I think the computer is winning. So, Madison, John talked about how the idea came about. How did you organize all of that?
So I actually didn't organize that at that point. That was the pre-Madison time. I feel like I just keep coming back and being like, sorry, Strick, it wasn't there.
This was known at Urban Avenues as BM before Madison.
Before
now
Madison,
they're in the AM time. It's much better.
And so now we're in the time where I am trying to think about how do we make it to where more people can have those conversations. So yeah, adding the podcast piece, but then also to where people can have those conversations with people in their lives too. And so we're about to actually launch kind of this new model for porch sittings where we kind of we equip people a little bit more and step kind of out of the driver's seat to where people can work with people in their own lives who maybe they share a critical difference with, but have that love for one another and want to bring in people from their circles, whether it's their like inner circle, second ring, third ring, people that just want to have these conversations, want to be better because they're learning more about one another. And so equipping them how to have those good conversations, how to enter into those tougher territories like John was talking about with love and with respect and recognizing the dignity of everyone and their perspectives. But more so creating it to where it can be done anywhere and with more groups. And so we're moving full steam on trying to get that. It's going to be virtual, I guess, for the first bit or out back people's backyards maybe. If they got a really big front porch, bring it on. But,
Right.
But something along that line. And so we're really excited. I think it's going to be fun to be able to see how people who are living life with their groups, with their friends, their family, church members, whatever it is, and they're learning from one another and they're having a place to have these really tough conversations and regularly. So it's not just coming in once and then hoping that the info stuck and the lesson learned and then you can go. That it's a continual thing where maybe once a month you're getting together and you're having these conversations and, I learned a lot more this month. Let's talk about it. So I think it's going to be really good. I'm excited to see what can come from it.
Madison, John talked about a piece of the porch sitting, which is the students that are there. Can you explain to me how, I think the program is called 5 Loaves. Can you explain how the young people or the students are involved in these conversations?
Yeah. So one, I'll kind of backtrack a second to talk a little bit more about what 5 Loaves is, and then that'll help make sense. Go. So 5 Loaves, it's a group of kids who are coming in from, we got about 9 different schools represented across the city, and they're in high school, couple in college, and they're learning life skills through food. So we meet up as a group every 3 weeks when we can, and when you're able to actually share food with one another. And we'll talk about an important life skill or a trait that we want to strengthen in. So it could be leadership, it could be civic responsibility, entrepreneurship, so many different lessons that we go through in a year, and we'll talk about it. We'll see how food can play into it. So We have local chefs sometimes that'll come in and they'll lead that lesson. Or sometimes I do it if the kids are really unlucky. And then we'll do like pop-up dinners, all kinds of stuff. So these kids are learning a lot about culinary skills, and they may not necessarily have the dream of becoming a chef. They may, like, all the kids are going all different directions. Like, we got kids who want to be in the medical field, historians, social workers, full gamut. But with these porch sittings, it gives them a chance to participate in the conversation, but then also they bring food, they provide food to it. And so, as we move forward, and especially with today's world, might have to look a little different. But that was one of the things that was so fun. I got to participate in one, and that not before Madison, not after Madison, just the Madison's coming in right now, and we've got somebody else leading porch sittings. The stars all aligning. I got to be with it with the Five Loaves kids. And so we made the food and we got to participate, and it was so cool to get to see them participate, because when I was in high school, I didn't want to talk. I didn't have any confidence that I had anything worthwhile to say. I still struggle with it. And
Gotcha.
These kids were over here talking about really hard stuff and big deals about symbolism and how certain symbols make them feel and how they've seen it impact culture, and they're just going for it. And it was really cool to get to see. So it's fun because they're not just getting to share their talent with the food, but they're also getting to really actively participate. So you get that younger voice audience in there too. But then also you just get to eat the yummy food that they made.
There you go. So we have the porch sitting, we have Five Loaves, and you married those two together, and the students get a chance to be a part of some great conversations with adults. But those adults are an eclectic group from all over the place. I would have to say this, John, if it wasn't for Tal introducing us, I don't know if our paths would have ever crossed. You're a local business owner that has a high-profile company, especially right now with the medical field, to do what you do professionally, and then have the wherewithal to say, hey, let me add to my life and do this nonprofit and try to collect people. How do you put it all together?
Yeah, honestly, I've got amazing teams, both with my healthcare company and with Madison and her team. We've been gifted with some fantastic interns that come in not only really passionate about what we're doing, but also really ready to be lifetime learners. And I really just stir the soup. It's about really taking that attitude and that ambition for learning each other and for living a curious life. I tell you, I was raised by a father and mother that put that in me. And my mom was a little bit of a social activist back in the 1960s and 70s. And I watched how her passion led a lot of what she did. And my dad was a lifetime creator. And this was a guy that I've never met anybody as curious and as bold as he was. And so I think they inspired me to think, how do you stir curiosity with the ideas of beauty and lifetime learning, and people, and the idea of love being sort of a center post of what really is the key thing that will pull all that together in a way that a city has changed, a state has changed, a country has changed. And so for me, it's all synergistic. Honestly, this is what I do in my healthcare company, is I think about how do we change healthcare in ways that physicians and patients feel a very different experience, because the sense of calling, that the leaders are actually animating all the pieces and parts that sometimes are really frustrating to us. If you try to go to the doctor, you are trying to navigate a hospital, or you got a sick family member, it's going to take visionary, curious, lifetime learners to change that, just like it is to change our city, change the conversations and the freedom of people being more empathetic with each other versus us all driving our own train and thinking that we've got it figured out. So
Right. That's a great response. Tal, let me ask you this question. Now, you've heard John's response, and you've been great friends with him for a while. What is it to be a true leader that the first thing you say when someone asks you, how do you do it, and you say, hey, I have a great team? Is that not like the corn response from a great leader?
Well, it is, and sometimes it's sincere, and sometimes it's not. But with John, I promise you that's sincere. And something that he said there that I think is really kind of the key to John is just curiosity.
Gotcha.
But always with it being anchored in doing the right thing. And so there's and wanting to make that a bigger idea for a culture of doing the right thing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's politics, whether it's city government, whether it's it's racial issues, whatever that is. He really is committed to the right thing, and but he's very curious about it. It's not like, okay, here's my vision and here's what I want everybody to do, and that will be the right thing. It doesn't start with him. It starts with his faith, and it starts with taking that out further, just kind of, a rock in the water and just ripples. This just happens to be a very deep pond. But that's John. So it's always fun to hear him talk about it. I've been hearing him talk about it for years, and it never gets old. I just enjoy listening to him. And he is the prototype of an entrepreneur, which is why there's just always new things coming out.
Wow.
It's fascinating to watch, but it all comes from that curiosity and that just kind of groundedness and wanting the right thing to happen.
That being said, by you being in the healthcare field, part of what you're doing, John, in your organization is Care Health. How does Care Health help people?
Yeah, so Care Health really came out of a moment in time decision that when COVID first hit, I was actually in DC at a meeting and was coming home, and you could just kind of feel the fear that was building around the country. It hit New York hard and fast. I could feel it in DC even as I was there for this meeting in early April. I came back on a Saturday, and I can remember just praying and saying, God, it's interesting that you've given us Urban Avenues as this gift and this place to walk with so many different people. And you've also given us this healthcare company that you've made really missional, and you've given us sort of this crazy long vision for what we want to change in healthcare. So there's got to be some kind of intersection at this point. But I don't want to have to figure it out, honestly. And would you just give it to me as to what you want us to do? And out of that moment, the next day, my sister called and said, we've got some people in our town, and she lives in New York. And she said, that are starting to try to figure out how to get food to some of these healthcare teams. And I was like, God, that's a great idea. And so I called Madison. She's probably smiling. And it was early Monday morning. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. I said, hey, we've got this idea. I said, we got to start working on it and think about it. And I kind of gave her the background. And by that afternoon, we had come up with a full strategy of how we were going to work with the restaurants in the city, figure out how to create self-contained meals, that we could put together a volunteer network through Urban Avenues that could deliver those to all the hospitals that we would partner with. And Madison and I were going back, well, she's just great at I come with the bright idea. She comes with the questions of okay, how exactly are we going to do this? And so, but by the end of the day, we had a plan in place. By the next day, Madison Kerns had designed a website that we could use. We had chosen our name and kind of what we were going to run with, and we were talking to hospitals. And so for a better part of 3.5 months, we were delivering what, Madison? I mean, eventually it was up to 1,000 meals a week. To healthcare workers around the city that represent about 20 some odd hospitals and 20 plus restaurants. And it was beautiful because it gave the opportunity and respite for a lot of people that are hourly workers in restaurants, that this was, I mean, when there was no immediate government intervention,
Right.
there was just a lot of fear. And there were a lot of line cooks out of work. You had a lot of people that were calling us that were friends of ours saying, we don't know if we're going to make it. And this opportunity to say, we want to love them well and be able to love the people that are taking so much pain and so much pressure so quickly in the healthcare community. So, again, it's just like God to write a story that we get to read. And that was what Care Health has been. And so Madison's been a huge not only visionary in the middle of that, but also orchestrating those teams. And we had, what, Madison, probably 18, 20 volunteers that were running. Of course, we had little training manuals for them and safety buckets of how they cleaned their cars and cleaned the boxes and got things to hospitals and back and forth.
Yeah, you start getting people to the front door of a hospital when you got a medical crisis, and so you got to make sure they feel comfortable with what they're doing. But yeah, no, it was. It's been a lot of fun. Well, and especially, you know, Urban Avenues, our whole mission is about uniting disconnected communities.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when COVID first hit, the healthcare teams and the restaurant teams felt so alone. And so it was a great way for us to be able to unite them and for the city to be able to participate, and get a chance to say, I want to help, because this city's so great about, they really do want to help in a lot of ways. And when they're being told they need to stay home, but they still, their hearts are breaking for the nurses and the doctors, and then also for the restaurant owners in town. It really was awesome to get to see how they were able to support. And then, yeah, those volunteers who were making everything happen, because 1,000 deliveries or 1,000 meals a week is a lot.
That
So
is a lot. That is
it's a lot for those restaurants, a lot for those volunteers. So it's awesome. Yeah, no, it's a great program. We've been really excited to get to be part of it.
So when I met you guys a couple of months ago, I was just so at awe about the work that you guys were doing, who you are as people, and the whole disconnecting communities as a mission statement. I just heard, John, I mean, just hearing Madison take the mission and apply it to what you guys are doing to say, hey, we're still staying on task, even though it's a little different. We're still on task to the mission of what Urban Avenues is about. What I want is to be sure that as people are watching this, that right here in Birmingham, Alabama, we have a group of people that want to connect disconnected communities to have a conversation. No matter how hard that conversation may be on the surface, guess what? If we talk a little bit, we may find some real common ground. So I really like the fact of that. Listen, I feel that even when I talk to Tal, like the more and more I talk to him, at first I thought he was from Louisiana, and he explains his life, and he's just a cool guy. There's no way of getting around how cool he is, but in his work in counseling people, he actually gets a chance to talk to people all the time, even in the midst of some chaotic situation. Guess what? His job is to help them walk through it. My job as a minister, as a DJ, as a podcast and video host, I talk to people. So it's all right in the vein. So when it was an idea of, hey, who could I talk to? Really, it was Madison that reached out and said, hey, we're doing this Care Health. I wanted to position it to some people, but I said, hey, why not just use the platform that I have to introduce Urban Avenues to Strick City Live's audience? So that's why you guys are here today. And I think I want everybody here. When I sat down with you, I just left so encouraged by the work. Like, John, I know that you have tons of things to do, but even your willingness to sit down with us today in Madison, I mean, this is all after hours for everybody. Tal, this is all after hours. I've worked personally all day at this desk, but we're willing to make content and talk to people so that someone else could be helped.
Yeah.
I want to be sure that I talk about one more thing, guys, and that's, I guess, what you're doing ongoing with the film camp. Could you explain, Madison, maybe where that is and how people can get involved with your film camp?
Yeah, so normally we love getting them out in the city and letting them interview local entrepreneurs, letting them go and take footage from Railroad Park and all kinds of things. But with this pandemic, we had to get creative, and so we did 2 weeks in June and 2 weeks in July where we had instructors from all over the country, honestly, that were professional filmmakers and photographers that could help these kids be able to identify really what a story is and why it matters. And so, because that's such a crucial element to you looking inwardly, figuring out, okay, what's my story? You know, you're talking about Tal's story and everything like that. That's such a big, crucial piece of who he is and how he relates to the world. And so how do you really kind of dissect your personal story so then you know how to really impact the world better? And so that's one of the things that we try to just help the kids feel more confident in being able to figure out what that looks like, and then how they see it in film, how they see it in photography, how they could make it into a business if they wanted to, but more so just continuing to go back to that idea of being curious and really pursuing what your story is, and then having that curiosity to go towards others. So yeah, we had 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July. We're working on making it into a program that we can have a little bit more throughout the year. But students, like we always love to work with students from particularly high school is usually our age range. We love middle schoolers, we love elementary school kids, but we tend to focus a lot with the high school aged and then college age kids. So if anyone did want to get a part of it, if they went to urbanavenues.com, we got a tab that says contact. And so that should be a spot to where they could say, that they wanted to get involved, or they can learn more about what Fish Camp is. We got some videos from Fish Camp Films on there, and or even porch sittings or Five Loaves. I mean, they can reach out for anything on there, and I'll answer them back. So
let me ask you guys. So right now, with the pandemic and the quarantine, what are you actively doing now to connect with people?
Yeah, that's a great question, and Madison can talk about it. I think this with Fish Camp Films for the last several months, that's been a really active way we've been connecting people. But I'll tell you, there's a ton of energy, Strick, around what porch sittings can mean, and I think there's a lot of ways that we can animate that, as Madison said a few times, maybe a little bit differently than we have before. But confinement is the mother of all creativity, and so I believe that we will be able to take the framework that are our limitations right now and do some amazing stuff in these next few months. And so Madison has got a team that they're all over doing that, and she's really got some exciting ideas.
Okay, so Madison, before you answer that question, I have to ask this question to John. John, now I need something hot off the press. You really seem like a real thinker, John. Like, I know you're a real thinker. Give me something, like right now, like you've been thinking about. You may have pitched it one time to somebody. You've been calling people and saying, "Hey, what do you think about this?" John, I know it's on your mind, and you said something to, "Hey, we're doing something innovative." I agree, you're doing something innovative. What are you working on right now, John? Madison, don't lose your thought, but I want to get this hot off the press. I'm putting John on the spot.
Yeah,
you want this? You want this on the topic that we're on, or you want this on any topic?
Listen,
that's how many ideas he has.
That's exactly what I know, Tal. I mean, just in the few times sitting with him, I know there's probably 5 or 6.
Yeah. Just name a topic. He's got 20 ideas on it.
I really think that this whole idea of taking porch sittings to a way that, and Madison's actually already talked about a little bit, but the way that we build, this is like setting up a gym. You think about, our city's been great for having fantastically talented entrepreneurs figure out how to create community around just dragging tires around the parking lot and doing a ton of push-ups. And so when I look at companies like that have formed here, I think this whole idea of community and disconnected community, I mean, it's a workout gym. It's the idea of, we've got to build muscle sets around conversation, and we've got to build muscle sets around learning from each other in a way that our natural point of entry is to go to the lowest common denominator of what we've got in common. And that sounds super philosophical and nice, but I think that there is the opportunity for us to create sort of a gymnasium mindset around this idea of porch sittings that, we can create enough energy and excitement around it that parents and kids that might be thinking about how their kids are spending time on soccer teams or spending time in basketball or baseball, or what, they start thinking about, how am I investing the time to let my child and myself train our own muscle sets in how we pursue other people, how we learn, and how we create conversation opportunity with communities that we don't know. And it's crazy hard because when you think of all the barriers to that, there's a bunch of them out there. But I think through technology, through developing conversations in small circles, which again, the Port City idea is use small circles and build that. Then there's school communities, there's church communities. There's a lot of people that can do this without breaking down the normalcy of their lives. It's just instead saying, I'm going to invest some part of my life in making this connected, broader union happen. And, you think about it spiritually, Strick, and I think about it, I think, if we don't do something like that, if we don't take the time and initiative and make the time in our schedules, then shame on us, because this whole idea of the treasure that God gives us in this lifetime, one of the big things that I believe it is that community. And we've given up some of our inheritance if we're not willing to take the time to do it. So what I dream about is how do we just create exciting sizzle around the mechanisms for how that community starts to happen. So Five Loaves is a picture of it. Fish Camp Films is a picture of it. We want to keep finding these little common ingredients that people go, you know what? I like doing that. It's not that hard. And then let's just build underneath it a way that they meet people that are totally different than them and are coming from different beliefs and backgrounds and experiences. And then this stuff just starts to happen. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for or not. But
no, John, that was great. I wanted to know what you were really thinking about because like I said before, I know just in our short time, you are a thinker, you're a visionary. You're probably already 5 years ahead of us when it comes to the work that you're doing, whether that's professional or with Urban Avenues. And I just wanted to kind of get a nugget from you tonight. When you talk, and Tyler was probably feeling the same way, it gives me energy to think outside of the normal things that I think about. I give you one thing. I would not put into my schedule time for a community conversation. But I will also tell you that that is probably in my past, having community conversation has been some of the most funnest times that I personally remember. So why not find a way to put those things together? And if it's not me getting something out of it, what if I was in a conversation and the other person got something out of it?
Absolutely. And finding the pathways too, Strick, that fit the normal things that you say, you know what, I would spend time on this, or I would spend time on that. How do we think about those things and just turn them a little bit and create this dynamic of, you know what, I got this muscle set of I want to pursue people with just curiosity about what's their why of why they do the things they do, what was their roots for how they kind of got to where they are. And a lot of the challenges we're facing right now, it's framed a lot in social and racial and economic misunderstandings and anger and angst that are terribly important. Underneath all of that, there's a bunch of root causes that are just honestly our lack of curiosity for each other. And that's a shame, because that's one of the great gifts. And actually, one of the kind of fun, cool things that we all have in common is we all are intricately different. And there's a story underneath all of that. And so, great songwriters, great artists, great poets, they're all pursuing those things. And so we just want to kind of figure out, and that's why arts, we think, play such a huge part of this conversation, is if education and economic development and faith are going to happen in any significant ways, the arts have got to be a part of it. And because that's where so much of that transmission occurs. So Madison's comments about how we blend that even into port sittings, and we got into a little bit of that tonight, but I think there's even a lot more of that we can do and lean into artistic communities.
That's great. Madison, what do you say about all of that when it comes to the port sitting, the next phase?
It's hard, I feel like, you come back after that. I feel like you covered so much of it. But I just feel like, I don't know, now in particular, there's such a desire to just connect with people. I mean, we've all been alone or just, in very small networks for such a long time, and also digesting so much pain and and that curiosity and learning, and there's just so much that we're feeling and experiencing and need to talk about it, need to ask more questions of people that are right across from us, or that can look us kind of in the eye if it's over the computer, and be able to help us and connect, and so inform those relationships. So I think it's a weird time. I was talking about this with somebody today, like, to try and think about this new phase of porch sittings and stuff. It's a weird time because you can't maybe meet in person, but it's also such a unique time because we are desperate to talk and to really connect with people in a way that just hasn't. It's been needed for a really long time, but it's felt in a kind of a different way. Right. So I think it's got a lot of. I think a lot of really powerful conversations can come from it, and a lot of really stronger connections of people can come from it too.
Well, so I'll say this. This meeting is a small version of what the porch conversations is about. Tal being our connection. He knew me, he knew John and Madison, and bringing us all together to have a conversation, I think is impactful. It's impactful for me because I love meeting new people, and then when people are innovative and they're very thoughtful, and then if they're like Tal and they're just different, you know what I'm saying?
That was a compliment, right?
Oh, it was definitely a compliment. He knows that he's different. He's been living different for a very long time.
Some of that different got me to rehab, but that's another story.
But actually, I think it's a setup. What you guys were doing was ahead of the curve, because now coming out of this pandemic with racism being one of the biggest topics of our lives right now, to be able to then morph as we come out of 20, because I know it's going to be really hard to do porch sitting, and I know Madison is going to figure out how that works in our new normal. But as we go forward, I think that the porch sitting idea is going to be a part of it. I'm already doing it electronically with different friends. Guess what? Meeting in person. I'll put you like this. Meeting in person, whether you guys decide to do it that way or not, it takes me 30 minutes to get anywhere.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, if I can meet electronically, I save 30 minutes on the front end of being there.
That's right.
So and there's a way to connect with people, guess what, electronically across the world. So porch sitting doesn't automatically have to be a city thing, but easily could be a national way of communicating with people.
Yeah. And think of the interesting voices that you get access to with that. Madison had Fish Camp Films this year. Her speakers and the leaders and the ones that were starting the conference, they were from LA, they were from New York, they were from Madison, they were all over the country. Vermont, exactly. And kids, plugging in from all these different places. They knew it was centered in Birmingham. They knew what the ethos was, what we were trying to do. But man, it was a wide open doorway. And I look at that and think, all right, had COVID not happened, we probably wouldn't push that button this year. And so the fact that, again, we're working in confinement, and so hopefully you're exactly right, Strick. There's so many new relationships that you can develop because we're breaking down some barriers while we're also experiencing some barriers. And so it's really cool. And the people you meet, it's such an interesting life when you open that window and you say, I want to just take some time to push into new circles and step into things where you can meet people like that. That's an interesting life. So,
well, I will say this: COVID and the pandemic has got me to start this. So when we met, we were talking about some things, and I can only tell you, hey, I got a history in media, but I'm not really doing anything right now. I'd love to help you. Of course, I know how to do it, but I wasn't doing it. So I had some time, here with COVID, and I just went a little too far with it. I should only do like one show a week, and I'm doing 2 shows a week. And it's a lot of work putting these shows together, along with all the other media stuff that we have to do at our church. It is a lot. But guess what? I'm loving every moment of it. And
That's
if I
awesome.
hadn't started it, I think it would be a hole in my life to where I would not feel as fulfilled as I really would want to be.
Man.
So, because I get a chance to sit down and no one, Madison, nobody has turned me down yet. So I can basically ask anybody to come on my show and they'll do it. I have a media company out of Atlanta that's getting their artists and their clients on my show. They saw what we were doing and said, "Hey, we want to have a footprint in Birmingham. Could we be on your show?" Like I
That's
thought that
awesome.
was a big deal. Like who's watching this
Incredible.
and why are you thinking this is good? All I see is mistakes. Like what are y'all talking about? I hadn't had a clean show yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. This technology, by it being live, if anything, it's a live show, so anything can happen with the technology,
Yeah.
and sometimes it does. But tonight has been pretty clean. It worked out. So I'm excited. Thank you guys for coming on.
Man.
If people are hearing about you for the first time, which I have Valerie Jones on, and she's been in our comments, and she's already said, John, this is the first time she's heard about this organization,
That's
Urban
awesome.
Avenues. How can they get in contact with you guys to get more information about what you're doing?
Yeah, Madison, why don't you take it away with that one?
Biggest one, probably and easiest, is going to the website. And so it's urbanavenues.com, and that's where they can go to the contact form, fill stuff out, rather than trying to get my email. They can do Madison at Urban Avenues. That's my email. So they can send me something there, or going through the website, checking out, read more, and then they can do that. They can follow us on Instagram. We've got urban_avenues. We've got 5_loaves. We've got Fish Camp Films. We got Care Health Community. We got all kinds of Instagrams. So they can catch us there. But all of it will be at the website too. Urbanavenues.com is a kind of central spot to find all that stuff.
Gotcha. So, Madison, let me ask you this question. Am I right to remember you're actually from Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
And the name of that town is?
Clarksville.
Clarksville. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. And your folks there actually own a restaurant, right?
They do.
So you
Right.
said that already tonight, but I am putting it all together. I remember our conversation. Please get in contact with Madison and go to the website, give them your contacts. Listen, you guys are in partnership with tons of companies that are doing some innovative things. Is there any other partnership that you want to talk about tonight, maybe real quick, that you guys have coming up that people may want to be would like more information about?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say we are currently working on, we're in very entry stages of doing kind of an online panel discussion about a lot of the conversation that we've had tonight, about the general conversation that we've been having in our country, about just understanding what our personal role is in combating the racial tension and the racial inequalities. And so we've been working on the details for that. So we don't have any like dates or websites to register or anything for it yet, but if they go and they sign up on our website, then they'll be the first ones to know
Get
as soon as we
information.
have that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So-
And as far as locally, I'll tell you too, Strick, we've been so grateful for the local community, whether it was Care Health or whether it was what we're doing with 5 Loaves. The partners that are the small business partners that we've got around the city are phenomenal. I mean, it's, from the crew down at Post Office Pies and John Hall and what he's done for years for our kids, for the folks at Hero Donuts, and how they've done multiple pop-up nights with us around the city in interesting places that we get 40 or 50 people for dinner. The people in just a whole number of restaurants down in the heart of the city that just said, we want to jump in with you on Care Health, but oh, by the way, we want to help you expand the wings to 5 Loaves and let you get to that many more opportunities with students. So, we stand in the midst of a lot of great grace in the midst of this town that we live in. So Birmingham will always be my home, and I'm incredibly grateful for the generosity, as Madison said earlier, of the people around us.
Wow. Hey, Tal, I got to say thank you, sir, for your networking skills to put all of this together. Like, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I mean, you did not have to do it. Like I said, I remember the day that you said, hey, John, I want you to meet Strick, Pastor Strick. You need to meet
That's
this
right.
guy. And you put it all together, man. Thank you so very much. It's always cool. We personally have to do this together, Tal, me and you. Like, I need some of those stories.
Yeah, we'll take a few shows for you. That's not a problem.
That's funny.
Yeah. But I do want to say, like, on the porch sitting thing, like, this is, I think, in where we are as a nation, as a world, there are a lot of us that are willing to enter sensitive conversations, but are afraid to have those conversations, for too many voices or a lack of structure, and just kind of a lack of safety. And I go deep into, how the nervous system works and all that. But I mean, we all are looking for danger cues and safety cues. And when we feel threatened, it doesn't go well. And so what they're doing is really fantastic. And if the three of y'all that I'm looking at on my screen can form some of these conversations and host them and keep them safe, I think it can actually change the world. And I'm excited to be a part of it. So introducing people, if that's my role, okay, that's easy.
John, would you let him get away with that so easy that he could just throw off on the three of us getting together?
Did you notice that? He
I
didn't
did.
say, I feel like this screen is really the solution. He said, no, it's three of you guys. So
Right.
I saw that. I saw that. He's a master of handoffs.
I see. Even when we did lunch, he couldn't make it. But Tal,
That was cold-blooded, man.
yeah,
That was
it
cold-blooded.
It was. Hey guys, hold what you got really quick. Let me wrap up this show. Listen, if you're watching today and you are intrigued about what Urban Avenue is doing in the city of Birmingham and you want to be a part of it, I'm going to ask you to go to urbanavenues.com. Check them out. You can peruse everything that we talked about tonight, whether it's the film camps that they're doing, whether it's the 5 Lows, how all those things are still kind of working. And hopefully you can get in contact with Madison. She's a special young lady that's running that as the director of operations. And get involved. Get involved. There's still a need for us to have conversations. I feel like going further. Guess what? The conversations we have are going to be important, not just about regular lives and us talking about how we grew up, but let's talk about race relations. Let's talk about those things that are really, really tough. I feel like if we could do that together, that we could have a better United States, a better Birmingham, a better Alabama, and some of our households will be better as well. So thank you so very much for being a part of Strick City Live tonight. If you haven't already, I need you to go to YouTube and hit subscribe. You know why? I like for people to watch the show on YouTube. You can put it on your TV and see me in full view. Like if you got a 60-inch, you got Strick in 60 inches. Who wouldn't like that? Subscribe to Strick City on YouTube. Thank y'all for the night, and I'll see y'all next Tuesday. I got a big week next Tuesday. Don't miss it.
We live? Strick City. Woo!
Strick City, all over the world.
City, man, we live. Yo.